Hello, this is Aaron. I go by Nintendo Twizzer on various gaming forums, and I am going to do a tour of my game room. It's probably been about a year or two since my last tour, and at the same time I am getting ready to move in the next few days, so everything is getting boxed up. But I will try to make a quick tour of everything here. So starting off, I have my Nintendo set, original Nintendo NES, and it is a complete set. The only game I'm missing is Stadium Events. I do have a reproduction copy of that, but not the original cart, as it is very expensive. Okay, and next to that we have Super Nintendo. And this is a complete Super Nintendo set. In the middle here I have, I'll show those briefly, I have reproduction games. And some reproduction Super Nintendo games. Okay, on this next wall I have Nintendo 64. And this is a complete Nintendo 64 set, around 296 games. So much less than Nintendo and Super Nintendo, well under half the amount of games. Okay, and next to that we have GameCube. This is probably one of my favorite sets to collect for. And this is also a complete set. Down here we have different player choice games with the yellow spines, and we have all the demos and box sets, including all the different variants that came out for the system. Okay, we'll move next to the next gaming shelf here, and this we have various amount of different games. We'll start with Game Boy Advance up here, and I did a lot of those in different custom boxes. You can print out custom covers at the coverproject.net, and Game Boy Advance games will fit in a lot of DS cases. I do have loose Game Boy Advance games that can be seen here. Okay, and we also have DS games. I don't really collect DS games, I pretty much just pick up whatever I want to play. Same thing with 3DS. And next to that we have Virtual Boy. And these are all, these are kind of neat. Custom Virtual Boy cases. That is a Virtual Boy set. They only came out with 14 games. Below that I have PS3 and PSP. And one little PSP game kind of hiding over there. Okay, in the next shelf here I have PS2 games. Some PS1 games. Let's see, Dreamcast, Xbox Original, Famicom, more Xbox, and a few Wii U ones, and Xbox 360. The next shelf, Sega Genesis. Back up a little bit here. Okay. And actually we'll start from top to bottom, and at the very top here we have Atari. So this is original Atari 2600, and we also have some 7800 games. These silver labeled games are all 7800. We have Sega CD, Sega 32X, they only made 5 of those. Well, those are Sega CD 32X. Sega Saturn, and then Sega Genesis. There's actually a few that kind of are around the corner here. And I tried to group these together where I put all the black box Sega Genesis games together and then all the red box. And over here on this shelf we have Sega Master System. This is a complete Sega Master System set, which is a 114 games. Actually, I have 115 here. One of them is a Sonic 2, which only came out in Europe. So that's Sega Master System. We will move on to Sega Game Gear, 32X, and Game Boy and Game Boy Color. So, Sega Game Gear. This is a complete Sega Game Gear set. And below that is Sega 32X. That's a complete Sega 32X set. Below that we have Game Boy and Game Boy Color. And those are both complete sets. And these are actually custom shelves I ended up building and hand painted them as well, the logos. And then on the side you can kind of, if I do a side view, you can kind of see the tab system, and this allows me to alphabetize the games and find them without too much hassle, since Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Gear didn't have end labels. It's a huge pain to find the game that you want without some sort of system. Okay, oh, I almost forgot about Wii, and I have some Wii games up along here. Not a ton of Wii games, pretty much just some of the better games for the system. And that's pretty much it for games, and I will now move on to game systems. Okay, over here we have different game systems. And we can start with, from top to bottom, we have the Frankenstein system, which is the Sega Genesis, Sega CD, and Sega 32X. Next to that we have the GameCube with the Game Boy Advance player on the bottom, Sega Master System, and next to that we have the NES, and on top of the NES is the Japanese NES, which is called the Famicom. Below that we have the TurboGrafx system, and the cords coming out the side are S-Video, so it's been customized to output S-Video. Next to the TurboGrafx we have the PlayStation 2, the PS1, and PSP 3000. And below that we have the Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, and the PS Vita is next to that in a little case. Okay, we have the TV, and the TV is actually, sometimes I get asked why I use a standard definition TV instead of an HD TV, but for these classic games, standard definition really is kind of the best way to go. It's what they were built for, and in my opinion they display best on that kind of TV. And below we have the NES top loader, the Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, various Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Advance SP, GBA, GBA Micro, DS, DS Lite, DSi, 3DS. It's a mouthful there. And below that we have the Atari 7800, which also plays Atari 2600 games, and the original Xbox. And everything goes through these just these push button little knobs here. So if I want to play a certain system, I have it all labeled, and all I have to do is press the button for whichever game system I want to play, which makes it pretty easy from switching from system to system. So that is all my game systems, and I'll show just a couple other things that I have going on in my game room. Up top here I have my it's my Mario and Zelda complete in box sets. What I've tried to do is go from some of the earliest games to the later releases. It's all the main games that came out for each series. I know Mario has like a million spin-offs, so these are mostly just the main games. And I'll scroll through those here. Two of my favorite series. Okay, next to that we have the Nintendo 64 system and controller display. And this pretty much shows you all the Nintendo 64 systems and the different colors they came out with, along with the different controllers. There's a few of the really rare controllers that I don't have displayed here, but these are all the main controllers that you could buy with the system. And just a couple other things. Oh, Virtual Boy sitting there. I have a custom built NES lamp. And if you spin the shade, let's see if I can do that here. We got Kirby in the back and Zelda.